Alright, this is going to be a process of showing you how to get from a 2D sketch to 3D components, and then ultimately our goal is to come up with a finished product. So here is my fidget spinner 3D modeled. So you can take a look there. The bearings I found in the component library, so I did not design those, so those are separate. But I just wanted to see how it was all going to look when it's put together. So here it is. So today I'm going to show you how to go from my simple drawing that I had in the previous video to this in a few steps. First, I had an idea that I wanted to make these little arms a little bit more complex by giving them a curve. So it curves, it gets thinner towards the middle and then thickens out where it connects again. And then I wanted to make these smaller than the circles that the bearings go inside. So our first part is going to be just explaining how to get this two-dimensional arm to taper off like this towards the middle. So here's my workspace, and I'm going to start by just cleaning up some stuff. Alright, so this is where I left the last video, and I just rotated these arms, but in reality I don't need a duplicate of the center circle. I just needed the arms, so these are just extra things lying around for no reason. We're going to focus on this part, and I'm going to copy this first. So I want to select the objects that I want to copy. I'm just going to draw a box around here, and now go to the move tool. I'm just going to grab it here, doesn't really matter where I grab it, and just move it off over here somewhere. Whoops, I wanted to copy that. So Control for copy gives you that plus symbol, grab it there, and then move it over here. And then what I'm going to do is just get rid of everything except for the arm outline. Alright, so over here I have an extra line. I'm just going to zoom in to make sure that I don't have anything crossing over. Okay, so right here there's an issue. This is actually two different surfaces. We have this surface here, these two lines cross over each other and then connect again over here. So I don't want to leave this little tiny surface over here, so I'm just going to erase that. I'm going to click on here just to make sure there isn't another little extra piece. Nope, there isn't. So Control Z, undo that part. I'm going to check out this area over here. That looks good. And both of these are pretty good. Oh, here's a little spot over here. So I'm just going to click to get rid of these things. Those are really small details, but I'm going to click one more time here just to make sure. Oh, yep, there was a little tiny line there. So some of those things can make or break your drawing. So when you go to push-pull this thing into 3D, if you have a little line extra there and you try to make it into a solid, it's going to say it's not a solid because it includes these little tiny lines and extra stuff. So sometimes, especially if you're dealing with a lot of intersecting lines and circles, zoom in just to make sure you don't have overlapping lines and that you have a closed shape. Alright, so here's what we want to turn into 3D first. So what I'm going to do is draw a line from this point to this point. I'm going to draw another line from this point to this point. And the reason I want to do that is because this curve along here is not really a perfect curve. It's actually line segments. So if these line segments don't line up exactly with my center circle, so say there's a little gap in between these little, like if my other circle has a straight edge between this point and this point, there's going to be a little gap there, and that will cause the solid to behave kind of weird when I try to combine them. So I don't want any gaps there, so I'm just going to, on purpose, extend this arm into what will eventually be the ring for my bearing. So I'm going to now erase this line here and this line here. So this is my new arm shape. And what I want to do is I'm going to create a wedge. And in my brain, I've already determined how tall I want the thickest part to be, and then how far tapered I want it to be, so the thinnest part. So the thickest part on my fidget spinner is going to be 7 millimeters on the arm. And I want it to taper down to 3 millimeters. So let's start with that in mind. I'm going to start drawing some lines for my wedge here. So I want this line to go straight up on the blue axis. So if I hold my pencil in the right spot, I do get it to snap to the blue axis, but I can also use my arrow keys and just force it to go to the blue axis. So I just press the up arrow. So I'm going in the Z direction, which is up and down on my drawing. So the first measurement that I want is, I'm going to go 7 millimeters. Just so I just type 7, enter. Now I want this to be perfectly perpendicular. So I don't want to, if I draw this and it's not perpendicular to this line, then when I go to extrude it, it will be off kilter. So it'll be at an angle, and that won't work right. So I need this next line to be 90 degrees from the other line. So I want to draw this line starting there. Let's see if I can grab this. Here we go. I want it to be perpendicular to this line. So I'm looking for a snap that is going to be purple in color if I can ever find it. So if it's not going to give me the perpendicular, there's a perpendicular, that's edge extended. So I want perpendicular from that line. So this might be too close to the green axis. So I'm going to try to zoom in and see if I can get it to force. And I can't. So an easy way to do this would be to extend this line out. So extending this line out would be on the purple axis. So I'm going to just press the shift key or hold the shift key. I'm going to draw this out. And now I need to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm going to select the line first, highlight it blue. Then I want to choose the rotate tool. And I want to rotate it starting at this end. And I'm just going to grab the end point and make sure that I rotate it 90 degrees. I could type in 90, but it's right now it's snapping to 90 degrees, but I'm going to type in 90. So this is now 90 degrees from this first line that we drew over here. And I want to extend this line out till it meets this inside curve on edge. So here is where my wedge is going to end over here, and it's going to taper down. So if I want it to taper down from 7 to 4, actually I'm going to taper down to 3. So that's 4 less than 7. So I'm going to click here to start a line right at the end point. And I need to create a gap here. So I'm just going to use a 3 millimeter line. Actually, I didn't want that to be 3. I wanted it to be 2. So half of 4 would be 2. So I want 2, enter. And then my thickness is going to be 3 when it tapers down. So I'm going to type 3, enter. And then I need 2 more here, enter. So this should be the same height as this line over here. Hopefully, if we did our math right. So what I don't need this line anymore. Don't need this line anymore. I don't need this little tiny line here which lofted it off the ground by 2. And I don't need that line anymore. So what I need to do now is just connect the dots. I connect these 2 lines here. So here's my little wedge that I'm going to use in just a little bit. So that's one end. I'm going to go over here and create another wedge. So I need to draw a line from here, and if I can get it that perpendicular, that'd be great. Right, so we're just going to extend this line if I can. There we go. Extend this edge out. I need to rotate this again just like we did the other one. Select, then rotate from this point. Alright, now we need to extend this line out and get that purple. Hold shift down, get on the edge here until it intersects. So now I know that's perpendicular to this line here. So now I'm going to go ahead and draw some geometry again. Alright, here we go. Now these are actually lines still, even though they've surrounded an area and we've kind of created a surface here. These are still individual lines. So to group them together, I'm going to actually make them components, because when you edit a component, it automatically groups it together. But if I were to make this a group on its own and then try to extrude this, it won't work. It won't let me. So I'd have to explode this group and then push pull it to make a solid. So I'm going to make each of these surfaces its own component. So I'm just going to go ahead and name this. Make component. Let's do wedge 1. Enter. Make this a component here. Wedge 2. Then I'm going to make this a component. Name this arm. Alright, so now we're going to edit these components and extrude them. First thing, I think these things are going to act as snap points. So like this corner where it meets here, and this corner where it meets here, I think those are going to retain snapping points, but just in case, I'm going to draw a line, and this will give me 2 additional snapping points. So I'll have an end point here and an end point here that I can snap to. That will come in handy in just a minute. So first thing I want to do is extrude a push pull. So I need to edit the components. So I'm going to click this one first. I double click to get inside the component. You can tell it looks different. Now I can go in here and make some edits. So I'm going to push pull this. It doesn't matter how long, it just needs to extend beyond the boundary of the arm. So I'm going to just make it that length there. Next component. So let's go ahead and just select it first. I'm going to make a copy. I'm actually going to make 2 copies of it. So I'm going to do Control to get that plus symbol. I'm just going to grab it here and move it over. some random spot. And then I'm going to go ahead and do Control again and make another copy in another random spot. Alright, so now I have 3 of these, and this will make sense why in just a minute. So this first one I'm going to go ahead and push-pull a total of 7.
I say do all at the same time, okay. So it's going to be 7.
And now I'm going to do some solid editing. I'm going to use this first copy to get this first wedge shape. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here, and I want to keep where the wedge and the arm intersect. So that would be this intersect. So I'm going to select one solid here and then another solid here. And I'm left with this tapered end. And I'm going to copy, or actually just move, since I made these copies already, move this thing from this
point here over to this edge here. So that's not quite matching up.
Oh, so I gotta grab it from a different edge. So I move it from this point here, from the inside, to this point here. There we go. Those are matching up now. So now I'm going to use that same solid editing tool to get my second wedge shape. So select this solid and this solid. It's going to keep where they intersected. So now I have my 2 wedges. Now I just need to move this thing in place. And what I need to do now is just shrink this down by 2 millimeters, squeeze it in, and 2 millimeters on the other side, squeeze it from the other direction. So I'm going to double click this item to edit this component. Then I'm going to use the push pull. Take this down a measurement of 2 millimeters. Then I'm going to go ahead and edit from the bottom. Move that up 2 millimeters. Alright. Now I've got what I want, but I need to combine. These are actually 3 different solids, and I want to combine it into one solid. First I'm just going to get rid of the stuff that I don't need anymore. There was a little tiny line over here. Actually a couple of them. And there's going to be another solid editing. But what I want to do is both of these are combining solids. This one, if there were any gaps in the center, would fill them in with solid material. This one would union 2 solids, and if there was a gap in the middle, it would keep that cavity. I don't really have any cavities in this, so I could use either one of these would work the same. So let's go ahead and just use this outer shell. So I'm going to click this solid group first, and then the middle part. So those 2 have combined now into one solid. And now I can add this third one in. So this one is still selected. So I'm going to add this as the second solid. Now they're all one solid piece. Alright, so the next video I'm going to focus on creating the outer circles, and I wanted these circles to have a beveled edge, so not just a smooth cylinder, but the edges of it are beveled. Let me just show you an example here if I can zoom out a little bit. So the next video is going to focus on these little guys.